You can go, my chair.
Good evening. Welcome to the September Executive Committee meeting for Manhattan Community Board 4. I am the chair, Lowell Kern, and we have an agenda that I'm going to run through here. There are a couple of items that need votes. There are a couple of items that are just for discussion. The first item of business is that our bylaws provide that voting for the executive board officers, the executive officers of the board, that's the chair, the first vice chair, the second vice chair, the two co-secretaries, must be done in person. Because we have one-year terms, we have to run elections every year. The current slate of officers is not term limited, and I believe everyone has submitted for, no, that's not true. I'm not sure where Mike stands at this point. But I have submitted, Jeffrey has submitted, I believe Jessica and Leslie have submitted. Mike, are you standing again to be secretary?
It's in limbo.
It's in limbo.
Let's see if somebody else wants to do it, and I will kindly give up my spot.
Okay. Paul is the chair of the nominating committee, and he's raised his hand. So, Paul.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that Jessica has. I don't recall seeing Jessica's application come through yet, but that could just be because I wasn't paying attention. And we do have another candidate for co-secretary. That
okay.
Mike does.
All right.
Get somebody else lined up.
Okay, but the point of this is that the bylaws say we need to vote in person.
Well, but sorry, Lowell, not to interrupt. He doesn't say in person. He just doesn't allow us to do it any other
remotely.
way.
Yeah.
Right. So we're just clarifying.
So we would like the executive board to approve a memo for the full board to approve a memo to the borough president's office explaining that we will be voting remotely as we have done since April, including on these nominations.
I'd like to make that motion.
Well, before Paul makes a motion, does anyone have any questions about any of this?
Is this also?
One second, one at a time, please.
You have to pick who
Bert, go ahead.
Okay. What's going on for us? Is it also going on with the other boards?
Yeah. Do you mind if I jump in here, Lowell?
Go ahead.
So, yeah, this is a sort of pro forma. So other boards, few of them, not many, but other boards have had their elections online. CB1 was the first actually in our borough. And so it was decided as recommendation by Gail's office that just to cover all bases in case anybody claims that the election was done improperly or not in the regular format, that we acknowledge that the executive order allows us to have non-in-person meetings, but that the boards themselves are okay with running elections the same way.
So the executive board would vote on this tonight. If it's approved, we'll take it to full board. The full board will ratify it, and we will send it probably to Gail's general counsel for safekeeping.
Before we vote or on this, can we just make sure that everybody that's here has renamed themselves? Because if we're just going to ask for folks to say yay or nay, they need to be identified on the recording and as saying who they were. So I see a couple still from writing. I see two MCB4 meeting. Please rename yourselves.
One is Jean Danielle, and I'm not sure who the other one is.
I can change that.
Betty McIntosh.
Betty and Christine.
Okay, don't worry, I will fix. Oh, JD already fixed hers, and
Yep.
Betty, I will fix you. Don't worry about it.
And Christine, yours.
Doing that.
Thank you.
And Viren and Katie are with us for the next item on the agenda, but they are not voting on this because they are not exec board members, but they're joining us for the next item. So, Paul, I'll take your motion now.
And I will second the motion, Mr. Chair.
I move. Jeffrey seconded.
All right, that's a motion to adopt, correct?
There's a motion to adopt, yes.
Okay. Christine, you have a question on the motion?
No.
Or you're just voting already? All right, everyone, all in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Alan, I think that's everyone. Frank, were you okay? Yes, Frank's okay. Mike?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous then. All right, next item on the agenda is the Social Justice Task Force. Again, just by way of background, back in June, I created a social justice working group to deal with the issues that arose in our district, specifically following the murder in Minneapolis and the subsequent protests here in New York and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, et cetera, et cetera. The task force came up with a set of recommendations that were adopted by the board at the end of July at our full board meeting. One of those recommendations was that the group continue. In light of the 45th Street situation where we had that letter that we had the very long discussion at last full board, it was thought that aside from just creating the social justice task force as an ongoing entity subject to open meeting laws, we should put some guardrails in place as to what is within their scope and what is not within their scope, since it's not very clear as it is for something like waterfront parks and environment. So they met as a group. They have come up with a mission statement that would help guide what they will take on. And I'm going to turn this over to Katie and Viren now to walk through what their discussions were within their group and the way they see this moving forward. Just for transparency, the bylaws only require that the chair consult with the executive committee before creating a task force. But I'd like to put this to a vote tonight based upon what Viren and Katie present. So everyone, we know, that if we are going to move forward, it is with a full boatload of support. So Katie and Viren, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks everybody for inviting us to speak briefly this evening. So as you may recall, back in July, we made about a dozen or 15 recommendations that people reviewed and then voted on and approved. And one of them was to continue the work that had been started by the group in whatever format you will deem reasonable. And one of the recommendations also was that we include in the name of whatever format goes forward, sort of anti-racism or racial equity or something. So we really are addressing the issue of race as well. So we also heard from so many of you the importance of having our meetings be public and having them be, the public meeting laws apply and having them be regular. So we met in September and we announced it ahead of time, and it was a public meeting. And one of the things we did was that we came up with a proposed mission statement for your review. Viren, are you able to pull that up and show everybody, or Jesse, do you have it? I'm not sure who has it.
I think Jesse would be better with you all here.
I'll bring it up.
Great. I think that will come on the screen in just a moment. There we go. And as you can see, it was important to our group and our proposal for all of you that it be focused, that the efforts be focused on our district. And so as you can see, what we've written in this mission statement is that the mission would be to engage the community, to understand their concerns regarding racism and discrimination, and to take a proactive role in facilitating measurable progress towards social and racial equity and equality in our district.
Just a tiny correction. I think we're going to add, instead of in our district, it's going to be affect our district.
That's right, that's right. So instead of it being in our district, the last three words, it would be affecting our district. So replacing the word in with affecting. You're right, thanks, Viren. And also, frankly, one of the recommendations is that it wouldn't be called it wouldn't continue to be called social justice. It would be called something like Social and Racial Equity Task Force or whatever format you guys want to approve this. And again, it's really, the goal is to be a place where community concerns can be raised, dealing with racial or other forms of discrimination. As you may recall, the things that we've already said that we're interested in focusing on in those recommendations included sort of police accountability issues and figuring out ways to facilitate more community outreach and involvement and intersectionality between the police and some of the youth groups, and also seeing how we might be able to help some of the young people get access to sort of mentoring and job training and things. So anyway, there was a list of sort of 15 things that we've already suggested we're interested in focusing on. Another thing that obviously came up is the importance of us being able to support and collaborate with existing committees. And we made it very clear, you know, we are not interested in being an end run around any other committee. And that if an issue is brought to us and it falls clearly within the purview of some pre-existing CB4 committee, that we would forward it on to them. Or if it seems like it would also involve our group, then we would say, hey, we'd be happy to do a joint letter or a joint statement or whatever. But it would, you know, our goal is to be supportive and collaborative and to exist as a space within our community to address these concerns, and again, to facilitate measurable progress. Farron, over to you. Anything to add?
No, there's just a couple of things. The recommendation for renaming the group was, the recommendation that came from the group itself was to call it Anti-Racist Task Force. And we sort of are kind of keeping it open in terms of what to call it. So it's been brought to you. And I think you covered most of it, but exploring the overlaps with standing committees and the issues that might come up to those standing committees that may sort of be referred to the social justice task force, or whatever name we come up with. We are sort of open to that possibility. And the areas are very simple. I mean, housing affordability is one area. That's sort of accountability, as Katie mentioned. And it's not only the police accountability, it's also sort of multiple agency accountability. It goes into that sort of realm if potentially possible. And only if the issues come up. It's not like this group is going to sort of start policing every agency in the city or everything that happens in the district. It's about addressing whatever comes up, either to social justice group within the sort of this task force or to other committees. So that's the accountability part of it. And the last part is the public space and sort of streets and equity in our kind of, what we call spatial justice. So in other words, that sort of ties back into the accountability issues in terms of how we are surveilled, how we are sort of monitored, how our sort of mobility is either restricted or not restricted in our own district. And I think those are the sort of, generally speaking, the kind of issues that people have brought up. And last but not the least is education. And that is sort of right now, it's pretty unclear as to what some of those issues might be. But one of the things that we sort of discussed is that a lot of what we will do is actually still getting defined and refined as we go. So that's just pretty much what I had to say.
Yep. Oh, Lowell, you're on
Yeah,
mute.
on mute. Lowell, like I was saying it to myself. One thing I will add is that this task force will report to the executive committee as all the other committees do. It will not be reporting into any specific committee. So there's no committee oversight over the task force. It will be executive oversight over the task force. So they would basically have the standing of a full committee without being a committee. So we don't get into a numbers game with people serving on too many committees or not enough committees. Are there any questions for Viren and Katie? Betty, I saw your hand go up first in blue. Go right ahead. JD is next.
Well, anyway, I think it's wonderful that you're doing this. I think it's admirable. And I think if you're changing the name of the task force, we should participate in what you choose for the different name. And, oh, the thing went off the screen. But I thought that the measurable progress seemed like a very aspirational goal, and that measurable progress towards social and racial equality and equity and equality is a terrific goal. I just wonder if you guys have thought what measurable progress would look like. In other words, what data or what milestones, or what would that be? So that kind of was a question mark with me. And my other question was, would any of this deal with economic equity and homeless people? Those are all my questions.
Thanks, Betty. In fact, we had quite a lengthy discussion at our last meeting about measurable progress. I think one of the sort of main issues was that we didn't want this to, look, number one, we certainly don't think that we are going to be solving racism anytime soon, or that we are doing it at all. And that we didn't want it to just be like a committee that makes sort of grandiose, lovely sounding statements and doesn't do anything. So we talked about the fact that we want it to be about steps that we help facilitate that are, that are steps and that go towards progress. So for example, if we help the Police Athletic League get active in our district and help there be sort of, activities between the police and youth, we think that would be measurable progress. We could show that we helped facilitate the meetings where those were planned. If we organize some voluntary training seminars for anybody on the community board to do if they want to about anti-racism. And we would set that up and we could say, see, we identified the speaker and then we arranged it and we offered it and some people took it, and look, that is something that we can show that we did. So it was really talking about sort of actionable steps that are helping sort of move things forward.
It's not any different than what most of the committees currently do. We are an advisory body. We are not actually, and we can propose solutions and sort of ideas towards solutions, but we can't implement any of those directly. And just like any other committee facilitates people to come and talk to us, to the community, and get community's input, and then propose thoughts about whether it translates into a letter that gets written to a particular agency through the board process, or similar to what we did with the Derek Ingram situation, or in many cases, it might not even be something that the task force does directly. It might be an issue that actually gets referred back to the land use committee or the housing committee or any of the other committees, which is where it has a sort of better chances of turning into an actionable plan. So that's the kind of a background with which the task force is going to, it kind of becomes the kind of platform where people come and vent their sort of frustrations, their opinions, and their sort of concerns about issues that relate to social and racial justice. And if the group collectively thinks that it needs to be referred back to either the committee or there's something that we can directly engage with in terms of, okay, let's just think about drafting a letter to such and such agency. That's what it is.
Betty, your second question about economic justice issues, we have talked about, and if you look at the list that we had recommended in July, the sort of 15 items that we're interested in, more than one of them had to do with sort of economic justice issues, including, for example, like the youth employment program was first canceled, and it was brought back, but it was greatly reduced. And that had a big impact on, youth in our community. And so we wanted to sort of push for expanding that and making sure that people had, paid job opportunities. And so that's one example of looking at economic justice issues with the racial lens.
All right, I'm going to keep this moving. JD was next.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I am unable to wrap my arms around this. I understand you want to do good and fight injustice, but to engage the community to understand their concerns regarding racism and discrimination, to me, opens up a huge undertaking, which I feel this community board has nothing to do with. If you find in Community District 4, in our board area, a lot of discrimination and racism, great. I don't see that in your mission statement. I see your mission statement wanting to ask people about racism and discrimination, and I'm sure people are going to have a lot to say. How is the community board supposed to deal with this? And as to taking some of these issues to the other committees, first of all, I would suggest maybe you should visit some of our committees like land use. Land use committee in Clinton Hell's Kitchen, we are mandated to deal with development in our neighborhood. It's kind of specific what we have to deal with. I'm kind of stunned that you would assume that you may bring issues to other committees. Again, I didn't join this community board to solve the problems of the world. And I understand, I think we all are against racism and discrimination all our lives.
Oh, did Judy leave?
Judy left.
Okay. All right. You can close my door.
Eddie, please go on mute.
So, but frankly, and with all the respect I have for what you're trying to do, I cannot understand how, as a community board member, dealing with a specific city charter mandate, we are supposed to deal with these huge issues. I like the idea of specificity. We did do a study about fulfilling the needs and delivering the services of those in our community that are underrepresented, that do not come and speak before the board. We studied those. We want to reach out to them. We want to help them, elderly, homebound, youth at risk. That to me is social justice in our district. But as to inviting people to say, this is racism, I'm discriminated, blah, blah. How on earth I'm afraid we're opening up this huge thing of incredibly complex issues. So I wish it were more narrow. I wish it were more focused. And if you want to open up economic issues, oh my God, oh my God. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, JD. Kit?
I guess I see this pretty differently from JD. Appreciate the work that you, Katie, and Viren put into this with the rest of the folks on the task force. In particular, I like the focus on engaging with the community. I think that's the real opportunity for a move like this by our community board, is to have the dialogue that we've often ignored or not created space for as a society. And I'm one of the people who's excited that's starting to change. I do have a couple questions. I was curious how we're thinking about equity versus equality. Was there conversation about what each one of those means and why we're differentiating between the two?
So we have started talking a little bit about it, but we, as Viren and I were talking about earlier, we're at the beginning of this and trying to figure out how how we can address these issues and what seems most pressing to our community. So in fact, Viren is the one who said that he thinks it's really important that we focus on sort of the differences and the importance of each of those words, but we don't have more to add right now than what our group has already discussed and when we were coming up with the general mission statement. But I think, Kit, it's a really important point and something that we're alert to the importance of.
Just to clarify, I mean, it's pretty much what we all understand about equity and equality. Equality is, you know what it means, but equity is the sort of creating opportunities, or not really creating the opportunities, but understanding what stake the community can have in various walks of life. I mean, if you we do that routinely in the committee work, right? You know, when we talk about new projects being proposed, and we say make sure that there is a sort of some sort of employment component to it, and then make sure that you know, people of color, the minorities, X, Y, and Z issues are addressed in terms of, you know, their stake in the equity of whatever, you know, whatever the sort of financial or economic activity that takes place in our district. So the equity is a little more than equality. Equality is that we are all equal and we all understand it and everything is hunky-dory. But at the end of the day, what's in it for me? And that's the question that came up numerous times during the sort of working groups meetings. So, you know, for example, I'm going back to JD's question. I mean, you know, when it comes to community board, I might be totally wrong. I'm actually relatively new compared to everybody else here, but define community for me. Is this a community of people who live here? I thought people who work here also belong to the same community, and people who come to school to this neighborhood, they also belong to this community as well. So, you know, it's a much wider net than we tend to sort of cast in terms of who is part of the community and who is not part of the community. If I live in Bushwick and if I walk into Chelsea, do my rights matter as well or not? Am I at least going to feel protected by the community district in some form or the other? But this is not so much about that. I think the fact that we're having this conversation is what the mission is actually, much more than what it solves and what it sort of comes up with in terms of conversation, and is what is probably going to lead to solutions. And they might not be direct solutions, but they might be pathways to solutions. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But, you know, in every walk of life, I mean, you know, the fact that it is open-ended makes it much more inclusive.
So, totally agree that having the conversation is value add. I do think it's worth the group taking on defining what equity and equality mean and for our purposes, because I don't think that we all agree on what they mean. In fact, you know, there's 20-ish of us on this call, and I think we would all define those words probably differently if given a blank piece of paper. But another question I had was, we're very specific about racism, and then we say and discrimination. There are a lot of other challenges that we have as a society, as a community. Would like to better understand why we didn't call out some of the others, like misogyny, xenophobia. Why were we sort of big umbrella discrimination and then very specific racism?
Kit, we also discuss that because, as you may recall, you know, we were originally formed with the name the Social Justice Task Force, right, which is sort of a broad, really big umbrella. But we were formed in response to some very specific events that were racially motivated. And so as our group was talking about what we wanted to address as a group, you know, we were sort of called out and told, like, hey, let's be really honest about why we're here and what events motivated our gathering. And it was very specifically, you know, racial violence and murder. And so it was very important to us to use those words and to be explicit about it. And so in fact, for a while, we were just saying, okay, we're going to focus on anti-racism. And then others said, well, I mean, there are obviously other things, and can't we also include that? And so that's why we then included sort of the broader term discrimination, because otherwise it was going to get to be a very long list. But we wanted to be explicit about the racial reason that we gathered, and that is definitely one of our focuses, or foci, or whatever the right plural is. But we didn't want to exclude the many other challenges that are faced by people within our community. So that's sort of the general answer.
Right, thank you.
One more thing, Lowell.
Oh, sure, you have one more, I'm sorry.
That was super helpful to hear. I was imagining, but appreciate you walking me through it. One plug for not calling it the anti-racist group is the last several years, this sort of thing was called diversity, equity, and inclusion. The last couple months, now people are calling it anti-racism. 6 months, 18 months from now, it'll have another flashy, trendy name. I would encourage us to keep it open-ended and call it social justice or something more all-encompassing, and not be performative and just latch on to whatever the buzzword of the day is. So, thanks, Will.
Thank you, Kit. Joe Restuccia.
Yeah, first, I think we need to lose the mission statement part of it. If it's a task force, basically all of our committees or task forces on our website will say what that group does, what that committee or task force does. Having a mission statement somehow elevates this to something else. This is just the normal, like the committee charge. So I give this to Lowell as a question. I think it's really not the right way to say mission statement. That's my form question. So if you can think about that on how to properly just put it out there.
Okay, we can take that under advisement, Joe.
But the main thing I want to talk about is, I think to Viren, first and foremost, we are local. That is our charge. And the city is a city of neighborhoods. We look through our local lens. People come, go to school, visit, whatever. Community boards are made up of people who live or work in the district. So that's our point of view, and that should be our point of view. When we make comments, for example, on citywide rezoning, like for inclusionary housing that happened a number of years ago, we took our lens and talked about how it should work citywide and put it out there. I do not want us ever to think we have a charge that everyone who kind of comes by is our constituent. Boards are parochial by their nature, and that's a good thing because it gives the community voice, right? And people are not shy when they go to a facility or something like that. As part of our community, they come and they speak, right? I want to caution some of the members. I'm really concerned about the academic nature of some of this discussion. This is where Community Board 7 goes all the time. He gets lost in a black hole of talking to navels, okay? Our board is known to be thoughtful, and active, and clear and specific. Let's stay on that platform, guys, because the more we get into like the broad stuff, like for example, what just hit me was when you said, have the PAL work with kids so there's more. The PAL in our district does that already and has 300 kids going to an after-school program and a whole process, and the police are deeply involved in it. Do you know that? Are you involved with that? You should speak to that committee, right? Because don't try to, I would say the idea is people come with ideas or concerns and then refer it out, but don't reinvent the wheel, because certain committees are actually engaged with various organizations that can help what's going on. So really, academic down, discussion about words less, just clear, thoughtful, as a forum for people to come and speak. That's good. And then but let's not promise the world when they come and speak either, because that's another problem. So we don't create false expectations.
We don't want to promise the world, absolutely.
Thank you, Joe. Dale.
I do want to echo Joe's point that it's, our mission be district specific. I agree with that. And actually, although it's high level because of the request to broadly define our purpose, this actual discussions that have been ongoing have been pretty district specific. And I appreciate, Joe, you bringing that kind of case study or model of like, we have a specific instance of like inclusionary housing, but then we have broader recommendations for the city at large. And I do think that's the way the panel or working group has been dealing with stuff. You know, for instance, the Derek Ingram situation is right in our district. Now, I do want to say this. I want to remind JD that the members of the panel are all community board members and sit on 2 committees, and some of us co-chair jointly committees. So we are fully aware of the work, you know, as a group, collectively, we're fully aware of the group of the other committees. I feel like
I don't need you to respond to my concern. My question was asking.
I don't need you to respond.
Okay. I'm going to cut it. I'm cutting it off right now. I'm cutting it off right now. JD made his point. Dale, you've made your point. Move on to your next point.
Thank you. My sense also is that when JD characterizes this as like...
All right, can we please refrain from calling out other board members in this discussion?
I'm talking to a specific point that was made. I don't have to mention the person by name, but a specific point was as if this panel or this working group is going to stir up racist sentiment within the district by virtue of its work. That is absurd. And that goes to an idea that like, that, you know, it's almost like a denial of the existence of racism in our society. I'm talking
JD, please.
I never
I'm
said
talking.
He's not saying you did. This is not specific. This is a conversation. We're having a conversation. No one's going to talk over each other, and no one's going to talk down to anyone else, or I'll cut you off and move to the next person. All right?
Right.
Thank you.
So just to reemphasize that there are members on the panel. There are members of, I think, just about every committee, standing committee at CB4. And many of the committees that we serve on actually meet on a monthly basis. And most of them are chaired by 2 people. So there's a diversity of views and interests and leadership. And most of us actually take a great deal of input from community members in terms of hosting small meetings and getting a lot of feedback and so on. So that perspective is in the very bones of the working group.
All right, thank you, Dale. Mike Noble.
Yeah, I just wanted to get to one point that Viren made. You know, we're not going to go out policing the neighborhood. You know, we shouldn't go out looking for instances of injustice, right? We should wait for people to come to us. That's what usually happens. Now, I would hope that as this task force moves along, that it does things in baby steps, right? Let's see how things work. Take the small issues, see how we work them out. Let's not make some grand effort and fail at it. Let's do it slowly. Let's all get used to how we're going to do this. We're going to redefine this whole thing as we go along. And I think that'll be fine. Let folks come to us and we're going to take it in little bits and pieces. That's my only comment.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Alan.
Thank you. I might be repeating what Mike just said, but this is a first-time gig for us. It's going to be a work in progress. The focus, what goes on or discussed or gets talked about will change with what is happening all around us. But I think the important thing is to have a place that these issues can be discussed. This isn't trying to figure out what the zoning is for something, or can we get a bus going down this street or that street. These are difficult issues. These are very personal to people. They're hard to talk about, and we just need a safe, and I think the community itself needs a safe place for it to come and talk about these issues. And it'll grow into something, or it may not. I mean, but it's a work in progress, and I think it's a place, it's a time and a place that needs to be have its own place in our community board.
Thank you, Alan. Bert, you had your hand up.
I mean, in terms of functioning, I mean, we could use, I'm not all for the words. I think as Joe had said, we can eliminate or de-emphasize all the words, because what are we going to do? We being the board, what is the task force going to do when it comes down to feet on the ground? And I think, Alan, you had said it, small steps, provide a forum, provide an opportunity, a place, a metaphorical place, or even a physical place in some structured way, starting out for people to air whatever they want to say. And it's local and it's from our neighborhoods. That's what we want. A place for people from our neighborhoods, give them some kind of focus and structure to express something. And then what we do with that, we being the board, we'll find out. We can't at this point think, well, in 6 months we're going to do this, and in 18 months we'll do that. One step at a time. And the first thing is, what kind of opportunity are we going to provide people in our neighborhood?
All right, thank you. Viren, you had your hand up. I'm going to come back to you and Katie at the end, so you'll get one last shot. Dolores, I'm going to skip over you because I'm going to take the exec board members first, and then I'll let you speak. So Leslie, you're up next.
I just have one comment on this, actually, and it has nothing to do with what the makeup is or what the objective is of the task force. I would feel more comfortable if there were more Black and Hispanic people on this task force. And I know that's kind of, we're dealt with what we're dealt, right? With who's on our community board. I just feel when we have white middle class people leading and this has nothing to do with the people on the task force, because I know it's in all great intention. It's not that at all. But I think when there are white middle class people leading a racial or a social injustice group and kind of directing that conversation, I'm not saying that they don't know, but they don't know exactly. And I would just feel more comfortable if there was a stronger Black and Hispanic voice. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And that's my comment.
Leslie, I can tell you anyone who asked to be on the working group was put on the working group. There was no selection process. The only selection process was that I asked Viren and Katie to chair the working group, and those choices were made very specifically given their backgrounds and who they are.
This was just a philosophy, not specifics. This is just
okay.
A general philosophy.
All right, before I go back to Alan for round 2 and then go to Dolores, has anyone who has not spoken, who's a member of the executive committee, want to weigh in here? Once, twice. Alan, back to you.
So maybe we need to drop the word task force, because that implies that there's a reason for why we've come together, and that there's going to be some sort of a goal, something's going to happen, and it's going to be disbanded. So perhaps maybe we should look at that, so it doesn't have that implication that we're going to be solving something or giving people some sort of implying that we're going to take care of something, which probably, the only thing we're going to be able to take care of is maybe their own personal need to speak and to express themselves.
Alan, when you said that, the thing that came to my mind is the budget task force is no way going to try and solve the city's budget. So I'm not sure that it would be taken that way. I understand your point, but we have to call it something. I don't want to make this a full-fledged committee because I don't want to run into problems where we have quorum numbers on other committees.
Yeah, no, I didn't say make it a committee, but I see your point.
All right. Dolores.
So I'm just listening to this great conversation that we're having, and based on a little bit of everyone's comment, what it sounds like to me makes the most sense is that as a specific body that focuses on issues within our district and tries at every point to be conscious of these areas where we can improve or where we can advocate more for those that may not have a voice, perhaps it's not a specific task force that coordinates with the committee, but perhaps it's a group, a working group that liaises with issues we're already dealing with that are on agendas of committees. So for example, if we are talking about, let's say an issue with education and it's already on the agenda, since as Dale pointed out, there are members of the task force that are already on almost every committee that exists. If those members are representative of that lens, the lens of social justice, the lens of inequality, the lens of equity, and brings that to their committee, then it already is embedded within our process. I think by carving out this separate group, although the conversations have been extremely helpful for those trying to figure out how to deal with this moment, but also how to define we as a community of being vocal and being proactive. What it's also done is just raised awareness overall. So why not have that awareness be embedded within the committees that we have and not be separated out where there's a quote unquote mission statement that gives off the impression that we actually have a solution or that we have a path forward. But if we make it as specific as Joe said to what we already do, it also allows us to be taken much more seriously as a body compared to other community boards that try to take on Herculean tasks that don't have a solution for it. So just a thought. And again, this is all coming out of this great discussion that we're having now, not something that I had brought up previously at the task force, as it didn't come to mind.
Madame Berthet.
I think that, you know, because it is so complicated and it is new and it's difficult, each committee is already dealing with complicated and, you know, difficult issues in their space. And having one person liaising is not enough to make the weight of that issue stand. I think people will revert to their business as usual solution. So I think I think this is a good idea, Dolores, a good idea, but I think it's premature. We are not there yet in a state of maturity that we understand enough of those things. Plus, this group wants to take some proactive actions which are not being taken in other committees. And I think we should let them run with that for a little while and see where we are at the end of the day. And I think the liaison has to happen, but it cannot be the only thing right now because I think it's not enough.
Thank you, Christine. I'm going back to Viren and Katie to wrap this up if they have any additional comments they'd like to make.
Let me make one more comment there.
I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Okay, I gotta start getting the camera working here. I'm sorry, guys, for doing it this way.
No, that was my fault, Mike. I thought your hand was in reference to your first statement.
No. It's my fault for being too shy with a lousy camera. Anyway, I think that, and the point that Dolores made, first of all, I have this sense that with the same feeling that I had after 9/11, I want to go join the army, go back into the army the next day. I was ready to join up. We're all, we're hurt by the things that are happening here today. We all want to jump in and do something we want to be activists, okay? I think we should be aware of things and we should respond to things as they come, as they present themselves to us. We've got to be a working group that's aware of social injustice, okay? We're more or less an advisory body within an advisory body, right? Can we do that? Can we be a working group rather than a task force? We sound more like we're just, you know, laying back and thinking about things and advising as those moments come around where we've got to say something, you know? Don't look like we're, you know, stormtroopers going out there and, you know, solving all these big issues, because we can't, you know? So I'm all for a working group, and I'd like for us to be an aware working group, right? Rather than one that's just going out and trying to do something.
All right, Michael, I'm going to address that.
Okay.
We originally formed it as a working group. The distinction between a working group is not subject to the open meeting law. They can have open meetings, but they're not subject to it. A task force is subject to the open meeting laws, and we want this group to be subject to the open meeting laws. So that's the difference between a task force and a working group in this regard.
I forgot that. Sorry.
Yep. All right, I'm going to go back to Viren and Katie now to wrap this up, and then I'll entertain a motion.
Viren, over to you first.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly sort of cover a couple of points very quickly. Michael, you mentioned about baby steps. I think that's the intent. We made 15 recommendations, the so-called proposals, and they're actually been sent back to the working group members for them to sort of pick on one or two items that they want to pursue further and further define, and in terms of actionable items. So that process hasn't happened. You have to remember that we were off in August, and after the July meeting, we were sort of waiting for the next steps, which is what this executive committee is actually telling us. So moving forward, that's the intent, to sort of refine and define the scope and urgency of what this group will do. And it will not be simply decided within the group, but it will be brought back to the board. So that's pretty much what we are sort of focused on right now. Going back to Kate's point, I think it's the same issue with equity. It's one of the sort of proposals, one of the recommendations that some members of the group feel strongly about. And yes, it needs to be further defined. And the distinction between equity and equality has to be sort of put on the table. It's important. I know Joe says that it's too academic. There's nothing academic about racism. There's nothing academic about trying to get back to your house on your block and being stopped while two other guys right in front of you walk right through. That's not academic, Joe. So I'm not going to get too passionate about it, but there is racism, and let's acknowledge it. And just to clarify, and I think I misspoke when I said people coming into in our community. The point I was trying to actually make, people who live here and people who work here, they pretty much are part of our community. And the working community, people who come and work in this district, form a pretty large chunk of it. And I think we need to sort of acknowledge that. So with that clarification, I'm going to hand it over to Katie.
Thanks, Baron. So I agree with everything Baron just said, and I think it's really important that, you know, as we've said, whether we call it a mission statement or anything else, we have a very specific goal of creating this space for dialogue on these topics. And I think it's really important that our community board publicly make that statement that we have a group, whatever we're called, that is committed to having that space and interest in dialogue on these topics. But one thing I would say, I know a couple of you said, you know, you think it's really important that that we just wait and only respond to issues that are brought to us by the community. And I would just point out that that is generally the plan, but that is not what we did with Derek Ingram, right? We heard through multiple press reports about something that had happened to a member of our community, and we did not wait to see if he would reach out to us, but instead we reached out to him, like, frankly to his lawyer first and then to him, but to say that, you know, we were very concerned as a community board about the way that a community member had been treated, and we think that this raises bigger issues for everyone in our community about accountability and sort of a variety of issues. As you know, we discussed them at our last meeting. So just to be clear, we haven't so far seen ourselves as being limited to only addressing issues that are brought to us. We have also felt that it was appropriate to address issues that we have heard impacted members of our community. And we think that that would hopefully be, that we would be allowed to continue to do that. Not in like a way that we're like reading the paper every day and hoping to look for more issues to go off and solve. But when things very clearly and directly impact our community members about these issues, we want to feel free that we can let them know that the community board is here and interested in addressing those inequities. And I do think it's really important that we not, that as a group, that we not be sort of liaisons to committees and not be allowed to have a voice and not be allowed to draft our own letters or make our own recommendations to the executive committee, but that we would have to sort of wait a month and wait for the next whatever committee meeting that we wanted to liaise with. Because I think, frankly, that doesn't allow us to be as sort of proactive and current with concerns raised by our community as we would hope to be.
All right, thank you, Katie. Jessica,
I'd like to make a motion to adopt.
is there a second? I see Kit's hand, I see Christine's hand. All right, all those in favor of adopting the mission statement of the working group, please raise your hand and hold it up until I say your name, because I want to make sure we get a good count on this. So Bert, Leslie, Christine, Alan, Maria. Katie, are you voting on your own motion?
No, Katie can't.
Oh, you can't vote. You're not a member of the executive committee. I'm right.
Yeah, no.
Jessica, Betty, Dale, Paul, Kit, Joe,
With removing
Frank.
the mission statement, Lowell.
I'm sorry?
With removing the words mission statement.
Yeah, okay. Jeffrey, are you here? Mike Noble, yes or no?
Yes.
All right, anyone voting no? Jean Danielle? Not seeing any others, that passes. All right, thank you all very much. Viren and Katie, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we're going to move on. The next item is a review of the agenda and the committee schedules. Those have been in the Dropbox. If anybody has any problems with the agenda for October full board or for the October committee meetings, please let Jesse know. Viren, did you have a point?
No, I just want to ask, can I leave now? Or do I have to be?
Bye, thank you.
Bye, thanks.
So does anyone have any issues with the schedule that they want to bring to Jesse's attention? You can do it now or you can do it privately. All right, moving on. Small meeting report from me. A couple of us attended a meeting with the shelter provider at the Skyline Hotel where there were reports of violence. Midtown North attended, community stakeholders attended, and hopefully Skyline is being run a little bit better now than it was. We also continue to attend bi-weekly meetings regarding street homeless that is being chaired by the Speaker's office. Eric's really running that initiative. The NYCHA working group has begun to meet again after many months in hibernation. That's Joe, Betty, Elzora, and Mike Noble. Jesse and I met with the commanding officers of the 10th and the Midtown North precincts, and immediately thereafter they were both. So we will be meeting with the COs of their replacements and the COs of Midtown South and the 13th. Those are the 4 precincts that touch CB4. And trying to maintain and continue a relationship between the community board and the precincts. Jesse, do we have 13th for full board?
We reached out to the 13th precinct to come and speak on the full board next week. I'm waiting to hear confirmation. I thought we would give Midtown North and Midtown South commanding officers a little bit time to get comfortable in their new position before asking.
13 did not change. 10, Midtown North, Midtown South all have new COs now. And then finally, not really a meeting, but I wanted to let this group know that we signed on to a letter from Gail Brewer's office that was joined by Dick Gottfried and Robert Jackson, basically reiterating everything we have been saying about the homeless situation on 36th Street. There was a lot of the other electeds refused to sign on simply because we asked that residents of some of the shelters be moved. We said they should be moved within our community district and that we would work with DHS to help find suitable locations in our district. DHS has acknowledged it is not a NIMBY issue, but now we've got Gail's support, Dick's support, and Robert Jackson's support on this. And Stephen Banks acknowledged the letter almost immediately after it was sent and said he would be setting up a meeting shortly, he said after Yom Kippur. So we're hoping that it'll be this week. And we will be major players in that, since it was only the 3 elected offices that had the courage to stand up and actually say, move one of these hotels. District office report, Jesse.
Hi, everybody. So very quickly, I think Lowell actually gave a pretty encompassing summary of the election process at this point and where we are. Paul Devlin has agreed to be chair of the nominating committee. We've received, just to respond to Paul's, we did receive everybody's desire to run again for all those folks who had sent it in. And we do have one individual who's stated that they're interested in becoming a co-secretary. And so that's where we are with that. We'll through the month of October, the nominating committee will hold its meeting and meet with all of the candidates and create a slate and make that recommendation in November, and then the election will be in December. Anything you want to add, Paul? Good. Office space, we are in the final home stretches of getting approval from the New York City City Hall's legal department and the deputy mayor's sign off. I have confirmed that OMB did provide us with an approval letter for our funding prior to all of this, so they can't take it back. So that was my big concern. So as of right now, we still have funding for our office space once the final licensing agreement is signed off on. So then I'm hoping for an October date, but we'll see. The committee schedule and agendas were put on the agenda. I mean, you guys have already been sent them earlier today. The only thing I wanted to highlight is for ACE's committee, will be meeting on the 20th, which is not their normal date due to the city holiday on their normal date, and then the way the month falls. The month creates a little bit of havoc with people's committees, but they all fall on the same date they usually do. They're just sort of jammed to the back of the month. There's very little flexibility in that. There's a couple things I just wanted to bring up that one thing I was looking to start to do, and I wanted to bring it to executive committee to see what they thought, was that we're going into the fall season, we're going into the school season, and it's clear that the hotel shelters, the ones that have always been here in our district, and then also the new ones, are all going to need support of some kind. And so I would like to, I've been working and speaking with some of these providers for a number of different reasons, some of them quality of life, some of them just finding ways to collaborate and partner with other folks who are looking to help. And one of the things I would like to do is doing a drive, a community board 4-member drive for the shelters with families. We have about 4 or 5 shelters with families, with children. So they're not adult families, but families with children in our district, and they're all run by the same provider, Acacia. And then I thought it would be also to include one of the other providers, one of the newer providers, who has 2 different shelters in our district, who I think I've found to be extremely responsive and really actually a really fantastic provider, which is Black Vets for Social Justice. And they have 2 shelters, one on 36th Street and one on 57th Street. So I've been speaking with them. You know, the stuff that they are needing for their clients and their residents are not outside of the ballpark of the stuff that we've heard before: socks, underwear, sometimes sneakers for kids, backpacks, things like that. And so the idea of maybe putting together what a lot of the providers can do is do an Amazon Prime wish list, where all those things are listed out, the number of items, and I was hoping the idea to send that out to our board members and their folks to help support the folks locally.
Dale?
Sorry, Jesse. That sounds really great. Although I'm a little bit hesitant with the Amazon wish list. wouldn't it be far better to like have a like local businesses to support instead of like funneling more money to Amazon for this effort?
I'm completely fine with that as well. It's just I thought that might actually be more and easier for folks on the board to do. But I think obviously the other option would be for board members to, do their own purchasing and things like that. I think the products that we're talking about I think maybe we can, I'm completely open if someone knows, once I get that list and if we want to work with someone, if someone wants to help me out, do a little research and we have a local provider, whether it be a pharmacy or a clothing store or something like that, that wants to sort of be the main place where members can go and purchase it, whether online or in person, that's fine. I will say the difficulty with COVID and everything, it does create an issue of just, where does the actual products get stored? Where do they go? Who are we sending them to? And so that does become a bit of an obstacle. But I'm if we want to try to do local businesses, I'm completely open to that once I get.
Or
that
even
list
presented as alternatives.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. And if once I have the list and I can shoot it around to everybody here, and if people know stores that would love to sell all their socks and their underwear and toothbrushes or something like that, then I think that would be lovely. And I think that would be a win-win for everybody.
Christine.
I don't know whether I missed it, but did you say, so you would do a drive? Would you open the drive to the public?
I thought it would be nice to do for CB4 members, since, we're not a small group, we're 50 members and everybody has family of some sort, friends or family that are, they're with. And so I thought it'd be nice to say it was just CB4. I'm open to doing it bigger, but I think it'd be a nice thing for us to do as a board.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think for the, the shelters with families with children who are, this is, I'm sure everybody's read the most recent, New York Times article or the podcast there. It was pretty powerful. And so they've been the longstanding temporary shelters in our district when we've always attempted to help them when we could. So, but I think this is particularly hard this year.
Betty.
You're on mute, Betty.
She knows.
There's a couple of thoughts. I think it's a wonderful idea. I also kind of like local businesses. I know that Metro Baptist Church every school year does do some kind of gathering of backpacks and school supplies.
Yep.
And I wondered if anyone has asked the people the families that are in the shelters what they most need. And also my question was, how would these items be given to the shelters?
So I'm working directly with point was to work directly with the provider, and the provider is the one that run the shelters. So that's sort of the direct relationship. We're not going to go through the agency, and the agency knows that and they're comfortable with that. And so again, that's the discussion I think I was having with Dale earlier, which is I think in one way the wish list thing online makes it very easy because it automatically is set up by the provider, and the provider provides the list of things that their clients have asked for the most, whether it be clothing or board games or books or whatever. And then it allows you guys much more quicker access to just, most people have an account and you can just click. Again,
and then the items are sent directly to the provider?
Yes, the provider then would
Directly.
distribute it. Yeah, directly. Right, exactly. So it doesn't go through DHS or a city agency. It does go to the provider. The providers obviously know from my conversations that if we would be, we're particularly interested in the shelters that they are they're working at in our district. So this is, while I think we have many people on our board, we don't think we could provide this, the socks that for every temporary shelter in the borough of Manhattan or anything like that.
No. Okay, thanks.
All right. Brian Weber put his hand up, I think, when I was talking about the Gales letter. So,
Well, Kit has his hand up too.
all right, I'll
know
come
if
back
it's
to
out.
Kit. I want to get to Brian because he is a public member, and I think this issue passed him by. And Kit, then I'll come back to you. Can we give Brian an open mic?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, thank you, Lowell. And I, again, want to thank the board for signing on to Gail's letter. I'm, again, wish to express my disappointment in both Corey Johnson and Brad Hoylman for not joining in that letter. 36th Street is a perpetual crisis. It's been this way for close to 4 months now. And in my continual correspondence and dialogue with Corey Johnson's office, they seem to think that throwing more security and policing at it is going to solve the situation. This is a density crisis. And Jesse, to your point about Black Veterans for Social Justice, in my limited dealings with them, they seem very responsive and willing to work with the community. However, they are here on 36th Street also, and they contribute to the density. And one of the things that Black Veterans for Social Justice had committed to was patrolling and addressing all issues on our street, as is NICA supposed to do. And that is clearly not happening on a daily basis. There's a steady stream of ambulances going to Black veterans. There's a steady stream of ambulances going to NICA. And I know I've had some conversations with members offline about this, but you know, I think we need to continue to hold Black veterans for social justice accountable, rather than, you know, saying, hey, and we think you're one of the better providers in our neighborhood, and reward them. So I'm all for the drive, but I just caution that it sends perhaps the wrong message on 36th Street, because I'll tell you right now, residents on 36th Street are not feeling very charitable. We are fatigued and just distraught as to what is going on here on a daily basis. And I hope I don't have to keep returning to Community Board 4 to discuss this issue. I hope our electeds are able to move this conversation forward. And I would also just like to discuss, perhaps afterwards with Lowell and Jesse, if I can join the conversation with Commissioner Banks and give him some residential perspective on West 36th Street.
That's not up to us, though, Brian. It's Gail's meeting at this point because the response was to her letter. But believe me, I understand where you're coming from. You know that this board continues to push for a reduction in the density on 36th Street. And we will continue to do so. All right. Thank you, Brian. Kit, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand before and I had seen Brian, so come back to you now.
Oh, definitely no apology necessary. Just a quick idea, Jesse, that we might want to loop in Superintendent Chumley and or the principals on the push to get supplies to folks living in shelters. Often there are efforts either at the school level led by a principal and or by PTAs to do similar things. So we might want to just let them know that we're planning to do this and see if they have suggestions and there are redundancies we might want to avoid.
There's no reason to double the amount of notebooks than we actually need. So I think that's a very smart idea.
All right, thank you. Mike Noble.
Yeah, just one comment about, Brian's comment there. We're sending stuff to family shelters, not to these shelters that have adults only, that sort of thing.
No, that's not, we're doing, I was recommending we do both.
Both?
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's something else again. And my suggestion is we deal with kids, family shelters. The adults can take care of themselves a lot better than family shelter residents can. Anyway, that's
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, that covers the agenda. There is a piece of new business. What, Jesse?
I'm sorry, I didn't. That was not the end of my report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was. Go ahead.
I just wanted to touch base about budget process. So we're halfway through for committees wise. And this is when I'm talking about budget, I'm talking about the FY22 statement of district needs and budget requests. I sent out an email earlier to exec and just of the borough budget consultations were done today. The final set of ones were done today. And I sent you a link with all of the agency's questions and their answers. The only one I'm waiting on is NYPD because they never send us anything in writing. So, but all of the other ones have. So I would recommend them. I think this one, and this so people understand, these borough budget consultations happen every year. Mostly the district managers are the ones from each borough put together the questions and send them off back in July, and then we have these meetings in September. We really did focus on the impact that obviously the COVID has had on the budget, the impacts we already know and the impacts that we think are going forward. So I would recommend, many times, sometimes the answers are not that helpful and it's a lot of jargon and it's a little complicated, but I think this year, at least the first half of each of the agency's responses are very specific about COVID. And so it does provide some real insight. And particularly around Department of Sanitation was one for sure. NYPD was one as well once I get that in writing. But DOT was today and it was really helpful. And the other one I was thinking about was obviously is HPD because the funding for all of those programs in terms of affordable housing programs have been pushed out, a couple different budget cycles. So you should have had the link sent to you earlier, and but they will be also you had them from last month in your budget in your committee packet, but you'll have it again with the most recent additions of each agency in this upcoming month. And then Jessica, do you want to talk about what the budget task force real quickly was working on in terms of the survey and everything?
Sure. So I think as maybe it was shared in an earlier communication, the budget task force, in addition to getting the feedback that of course will be prioritized by individual committees, has decided to deploy a survey really as a tool to just get as much, kind of in the spirit of the earlier discussion, that we make sure that we're getting as much feedback as possible, recognizing that this feedback may be outside of a specific or may be outside of an influence of a specific budget request, but will allow us to better take the temperature of our constituents to understand the issues that they view as most concerning during this time. And particularly since we're getting new items, we've asked committees to come up with 2 to 3 items that are new and sort of COVID specific, again, recognizing that these are not things that are going to be acted on right now, but maybe COVID has revealed as issues that need to be addressed in the next budget cycle, that this survey information may help us better prioritize that if we feel, that I'm sure we'll feel everything's important, but hearing from the community directly may help us better parse that out. So we, Dolores and Alan have generously offered to work on that survey, and I know they've shared over a draft, which we'll work through and hope to get out before next week's board meeting. And if you have any questions for your task forces, I guess I would just encourage all of you to continue prioritizing your list and gathering those additional 2 to 3 priorities. Jesse, anything you'd like to add to that? Oh,
He has to take himself off mute.
Mute.
It was I said it so well too, and I'm going to mess it all up. No, I'm only to add that we're per Jeffrey's suggestion and actually taking a cue from Christine. I'm looking to put together a way for the co-chairs and chairs of the committees to submit their revised budget requests online. So it would show up as an Excel spreadsheet on our end and make it a lot easier for us to do it. So it'd be a ranking. It actually would look like a survey, and it'd be a ranking of the existing ones from last year, a way of putting in additional ones, the new ones for this year, including COVID specific in addition, and then COVID specific. So it's still in its draft form, but I am working with my extensive IT committee, my IT staff of Janine and Katya, to put together something for each of you guys that will be committee specific. So it should look exactly sort of almost like what you would see from the Excel spreadsheet, but just through a survey form. And I hope to have that ready sooner than later.
Okay, does that cover everything, Jesse, from the district office perspective?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay, I have one announcement of kind of a personal nature. As many of you know, Douglas Durst was the CB4 designated representative to the Hudson River Park Trust, and he resigned. Gail Brewer has appointed a replacement to be the CB4 rep to the Hudson River Park Trust, and that is me. That means going forward that I will need to recuse myself from any issue that comes before this board relating to the park, which I'm a little sad about, but I'll have a different voice on what goes on now. So I just wanted to let you all know that. And then we have one other new business item. I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Lazarin.
Okay, just to give you a little context why we're asking for a vote from exec tonight. 2 weeks ago at BLP, this was on our agenda. We had a discussion about the resumption of indoor dining. And it turned out that the next day, the mayor announced it without us even doing anything. The governor announced indoor dining with a bunch of procedures going forward. In our discussions at the committee, we included, which is what the governor did not have, we had a suggestion about reservations. And we also, the committee was very thoughtful about employees, restaurant employees. Not every restaurant employee might be able, for health reasons, to go back to work indoors. And as it is now, if someone were called back by their employer and say, I can't do it, they will not be eligible to collect unemployment insurance. Of course, they were turning down employment. So one of the committee's recommendation, and it's in this letter on indoor dining side, that some accommodation be made for this. Exactly what, we don't know, but it would be an economic accommodation. Can we change the unemployment laws? Can they do that so quickly? We don't know, but we want that to be we want the employees to be taken under consideration. At the same time, the committee said, well, outdoor dining, street dining is supposed to be ending October. Well, why don't we suggest it continues through the end of the year? Well, a couple of days later, we come out with these proposals to extend not only through the end of the year, 12 months a year, permanent outdoor dining, permanent street dining. So coming up with this letter now has two parts, one indoor dining and one street dining, outdoor dining. And the reason we're asking for a vote is that some of the implementation of the street dining is going up before the city council tomorrow. So we would like to have something from us in the hands of our council members tomorrow. Just on the street dining, some of the things that we incorporated on the street dining year round, we've already adopted. I'll remind everyone in July, a number of those items we've already adopted. But we emphasize there should be a safe separation of pedestrians and dining area, clear enforcement, maybe in the future going forward, an evaluation of the whole program. Right now we need 8 feet. We are suggesting maybe 12 feet unobstructed on the sidewalk. This already we've adopted. On both indoor and outdoor, we're suggesting the possibility of grants, loans, however they want to work it. One for the indoor, upgrading the ventilation systems if people need that. And for the outdoor, heaters, heat lamps, propane heat lamps, which are used only on the sidewalks, would be only on the sidewalk, and electrical on the street to facilitate that. And this wouldn't be forever, but this would be while the emergency is proceeding. No music on the outdoors. And looking towards the future, 2 big items. One, and this I'll remind everyone, we adopted in July in a letter from the Transportation Committee, that in the future, even though it's outdoor is both street, the lane, that first lane in the street, or the sidewalk, can have both currently. We're suggesting as we go along into the future and the emergency is over, it's one or the other. And our preference, and we've already adopted this, our preference is for the sidewalk dining, and that the street, that first lane in the street, be used for pedestrians. Also in the future going forward, not now, of course, permitting would be free with the DOT, but in the future, whenever that may be, a good look at an appropriate revenue generation, some money coming from this, because this is a use of public space. And there should be some money generated from that. This is all detailed in the letter. As I said, the letter, initially our thought was we have time to put this out, and then we found out, well, we're having indoor dining beginning tomorrow. And outdoor dining, as I said, the city council is having legislation tomorrow. Frank helped write the letter, and so did Christine, if they want to add anything, and if anybody has questions.
Frank or Christine first?
I do have my hand raised there.
I know, I understand, but Frank, as co-authors, I'm letting Frank and
Okay,
Christine, if they want to add anything first.
I think Bert covered everything from my perspective.
All right, Christine, did you want to add anything?
I think we added, Bert said that, but we added the concept of saying, in the future, we need to be mindful that the transportation, the mission of transportation for the sidewalk and the parking lane, etc., needs to be preemptive over the dining. And therefore, there should be some, clause into that law to help that happening.
Okay. Mike Noble.
Yeah, the letter is in some parts, I guess, Bert, redundant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we can reduce a lot of the wording here. Just address what's got to be addressed tomorrow.
All of it.
Why go through this whole thing? People are not going to read it all. Let's just get to the end. We want the unemployment thing taken care of. We want people get some help with the propane heating and all that sort of thing, and other things with respect to the outdoor stuff. But it's long. The letter's long. It's too long. My comment. All right.
Bert, did you want to respond to that, or should I just move on?
Thank you, Mike. We struggled because it evolved, the letter evolved. And we're covering 2 issues, indoor dining and outdoor dining. too long? I don't think it's too long because it covers what we wanted, and we tried to do it, and I think we were successful in a fairly logical one upon the other upon the other. And if people can't read, I'm sorry about that.
Well, if we're going to fix this letter, let's ask the person who's up next, Betty McIntosh. JD and Dale, I do see your hands. I'm kind of running down the order. I will get to you guys. Go ahead, Betty.
When I raised my blue hand, I wasn't thinking of editing, but to follow up on Mike Noble's comment, you might put some bullets in the first paragraph, right after the first paragraph, with the main things about keep it permanent, help out the employees who may not want to go indoors, the propane, etc. You might just do some quick, that way the city council people who don't have a lot of time to read it might just get those points, but that isn't what I wanted to ask. On line 27 and 28, I totally hate the idea of seating by reservation only because, well, I love what this has done for Chelsea, all these outdoor places with their colorful umbrellas. And I like looking at them, and I like making a decision with a friend where we're going to eat based on how it looks and are the people far enough from each other and all that sort of thing. So I really would like you to delete Community Board 4, strongly suggest seating by reservation only.
The reservation only is for indoor, not the outdoor.
Oh, I misunderstood that.
We suggested that as a way of control.
Okay, I understand it then. Sorry.
Not at all.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, my other two thoughts were who enforces, and could this letter go to the hospitality organization, either sent directly or copied? And if there's any other restaurant organization, I think that should be involved. And I've seen some things where it's not exactly proper and on the outdoor dining, and I was wondering who enforces this?
It's enforced by DOT. So you're supposed to file a 311 and then it goes to DOT.
Oh, has anyone ever done that?
I think the board has raised some issues with DOT but directly. So you can do the same thing as you do with the board, with the other issues. You do a 311 and then you send it to, the board office and there is a follow-up.
Yeah. For example, the waiter or the waiters or waitresses are not wearing masks, for instance, when they should be, that kind of thing. Anyway, okay, I think that's enough for me.
Betty, JD.
Yeah, good job, Bert. Just 3 quick questions. Is this letter coming out of the committee, but they didn't have time to vote on it?
The letter was coming out of committee, and it was going to go to the full board. But because the city council is meeting tomorrow, we wanted to come to exec first.
So we would send it out with an exec vote.
I got you.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Thank you, Bert. 2 quick questions. I misunderstood about the recommendation for 8 feet or maybe 12 feet up on 8th Avenue, 9th Avenue, 10th Avenue. You cannot, if you have 2 feet, you're lucky. You don't know how 12 feet would work. And is the suggestion that people go out onto the street to circumambulate? Was that the suggestion?
Want me to take that part? Yeah. So we voted on that in July, and the idea is to say, 8 feet is not good enough. We know that, and we want more. and we said 12 feet as a point of reference. If you have 12 feet minus the tree, it gives you 8 feet. And then in discussing with the hospitality, we say it would be easier if the dining was either all on the sidewalk or all on the parking lane, right? But in some cases, the parking lane is on the other side of the bike lane. So the hospitality was saying, you know, we would rather be on the sidewalk and then get sidewalk extension like we have seen on 8th Avenue. And we have a big sidewalk extension in the street. And so if the hospitality is using the sidewalk, then there would be a sidewalk extension, which would be very big and very free, completely free. So that's the idea.
Thanks, Christine.
Anything else, JD?
I'm opposed to taking the sidewalk. I really feel that's something we need to be careful about, but nothing else. Thanks.
All right, Dale.
Thanks for this letter and for the input. We had the opportunity to provide some input. I don't know if this is really if there's space in this letter for this, like if it's part of this, but this is kind of a lament for the fact that we are going to be like the restaurant industry is going to be en masse heating outdoor space with propane devices. It seems like a small scale environmental catastrophe to me. It also seems like there might be some safety issues. I mean, I don't know how to address that or, reconcile that, except to say like, maybe we can even talk to like the city, like a city agency like the EDC or even the Restaurant Association to find like a less, a solution with less negative impacts than running propane heaters outdoors in the winter months en masse.
Jesse.
Very quickly, NYPD doesn't allow propane at all. It's gonna be electric, most likely. Maybe some other form of that, but it's gonna be that. This came up at Borough Service Cabinet, just so you know, and Gail is trying very hard to get all of the agencies coordinated on this because they know restaurants are going to be sent in every direction and having to jump through so many different hoops to try to figure this out. And there needs to be a coordinated response. So I'll just leave it there.
Okay.
There isn't one.
Also, I just want to say in terms of supply, there are very few propane heaters around.
I'm sorry. I thought there was language specific to propane maybe it just came up in the discussion.
In the law, first of all, the propane is already approved to go in sidewalk cafe, but the installation is pretty complex, including the fire department. So if that whole process turns out, and Bert is right as far as supply, I think it's going to be naturally self-limiting.
Understood. Okay, thanks for clarifying.
All right, thank you, Dale. Alan.
Thank you. I think the length of the letter is fine. I was going to speak on this propane business myself, but I was just curious, since it's already been mentioned, and perhaps it could be in the letter about our wish to not have propane. Why would propane be okay, why would propane be okay on the sidewalk and electric out on the street? Is it just a matter of how easy it is to set up electric out on the street? And why wouldn't they just say, electric in both places?
I think part of the reason is, and then we didn't mention this in the letter, is that some of the proponents of the street dining, not the sidewalk dining, the street dining, are talking about the possibility of tents. Tents. Don't ask me the material that the tents are made out of, but tents. And there's it's like how many angels dance on a pin? If the tent is open on two sides, it's still considered outdoor dining. And they want the electric inside the tents. I guess it's a fire issue there. Maybe it's easier, but if the tent is almost completely closed, and it's going to be considered indoor dining. It gets a little crazy. If the wind comes by and closes the flaps on the tent, I don't know what happens then. But I think that's the reason, Alan. They're thinking ahead in terms of tents, and propane just would not go in a tent.
Kit?
I think it's a great letter. Definitely plan to support it. One suggestion, sort of circling back to what Dale was bringing up and connected to what Alan had a question about as well. Would it be possible to include some language around studying or quantifying the environmental impact of adding outdoor heaters, and circling back to what guidance the city will provide in the future? I bring this up because as a city, like, we are late to this party of outdoor heating in restaurants and cafes. You know, it's existed around the world in lots of places for a very long time. And places like Paris have actually gotten to the point where they were going to get rid of outdoor heaters because of the environmental concerns. They paused that due to the pandemic. And I think we absolutely need to support restaurants to make outdoor dining possible this year. But I worry about a world where it's made possible in perpetuity without even a plan to understand what's the environmental impact in the long term.
As a matter of fact, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. As a matter of fact, Betty is telling me we have the word propane somewhere in the letter on line 9, on page 2, and we should probably remove that.
Okay, and then Bert, are you willing to take Kit's suggestion as a friendly amendment that they study the impact?
I find it very friendly, yes.
Okay, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. I recognize this is not a concrete comment, but I am struggling just recognizing that the city's at 18% unemployment, that this is primarily among restaurant workers and gig economy. Half of our vacancies are former restaurants. I hear these concerns, and yet I know that, like, I mean, you guys know I work in emergency food. Like, this is where people are really running. Like, if we don't do something more to help this industry, not only will there be more people who need our support and the city services, but that, you know, the city is a less compelling place to be, quite frankly. And I know you acknowledge that in the letter, but I am just struggling with the absolute nature of, like, no music, no, you know, no this, when I think we have to continue to be flexible or this city is really going to struggle. And I know that's hard to do in one letter, but I'm feeling like I don't feel like that the assurance that we need to provide some commitment to our restaurants, and I don't know that I feel like that's there.
Jessica, some of that is the evolving nature of the letter. The reason BLP came up with the letter in the first place was to support restaurants and urge inside dining and extending outdoor dining. And that was Bert's first draft of the letter. And as the city sort of caught up with us and agreed to outdoor dining and agreed to indoor dining, we sort of added more and more restrictions. But so the balance may have gotten off a little, but the original intention was clearly to urge indoor dining to go forward for just the reasons you said.
It is helpful to hear that, Frank, because I think in reading the letter, there at times are different voices, and I get, you know, writing by committee, but it feels like that theme is high at the beginning and maybe less so further down. You know,
I think we can smooth that out, but literally we trade emails with every announcement saying, oh, the letter's going to change again as recently as I think yesterday.
Sure.
I think to explain, I think you're 100% right. And the problem we have is that the law that is being proposed right now is being proposed in the context of COVID, but to survive COVID. And that's a problem because, you know, there are a lot of things we want to do as part of COVID to help the recovery. But then when we are after COVID and we are in the long term, some of those things should be really addressed differently. So I think what we may want to do, Bert, is separate that, saying, you know, during COVID, blah, 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 and then after COVID, blah, blah, blah. Because I think that's really where the letter is getting a little schizophrenic in a sense.
Mhm. Though I would also just add that the recovery this is a many-year recovery. And so some of the things about the definition of what is indoor and outdoor and how many sides a tent needs to have to be categorized as one versus another is much more around keeping us all safe and not about the economic recovery. But the economic impact of COVID is going to be felt for years. And so making sure that restaurants can recoup the income that they've lost over the last 7 months and going forward is also something to be balanced. But I appreciate that you all will think of that, and if that can somehow be smoothed in the letter, or I also think that bullet points might actually help smooth that out. But I would feel most comfortable if that can be, if our support for the restaurant industry can be even more emphatic.
All right, anyone else? I'll entertain a motion. Go ahead, Joe.
I move to adopt the letter with the changes.
JD seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
May not be our first choice.
Anyone opposed? Present not eligible, abstentions. That passes. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
See y'all. Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Brian? All right, he left. Okay, good. Night, Jesse.